I'd like to nominate Jackie.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm okay with this. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, yes, good morning. My name's Jackie Rant. I'm a borough councillor for Shinfield. Perhaps you could introduce the others, councillors, Beth and...
I'm Beth Rowland, councillor for Woodley South Lake.
I'm Basit Alvi, councillor for Embrook.
Okay, and then we have other members. Mr. Kloppers, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Just one point, I'm only here till 11:30. I've got a hard stop for a presentation I have to give. Just
sure. Hopefully we'll be over by then.
Okay. Good.
And then we have Gemma Wilford and Alec Coombs and Jennifer Lee. Any interest to declare?
No.
Nope. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just outline the procedure, and it's to we need to consider the evidence and the licensing objectives, which are prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, protection of children from harm. So the licensing officer will introduce the hearing report and update us.
Thank you, Chair. Members are requested to determine the application for a new premises licence in accordance with Section 18 of the Licensing Act 2003, having regard to the representations received and the requirement to promote the four licensing objectives. The following options are open to the Licensing and Appeals Subcommittee: to grant the application in full on the terms and conditions contained within the application to include any applicable mandatory conditions, to grant the application as above, modified to such an extent as considered appropriate to satisfy any relevant representations and promotes the licensing objectives, or to reject the application. An authorisation is required in respect of any premises where it is intended to conduct one or more of the four licensable activities, these being sale of alcohol, supply of alcohol in respect of a club, regulated entertainment, and the provision of late night refreshment. This application was submitted by Woking Borough Council in respect of Dinton Pastures Country Park, Davis Street, Hurst. The applicant has applied for a premises licence for the following hours: for plays, 1000 till 2300 hours Monday to Sunday; for films, 1000 till 2300 hours Monday to Sunday; for live music, 1000 till 2300 Monday to Sunday; for recorded music, 1000 till 2300 Monday to Sunday; performance of a dance, 1000 till 2300 Monday to Sunday; supply of alcohol both on and off for consumption both on and off the premises, 10 hours until 2300 hours Monday to Sunday, with opening hours of 0600 hours till 2300 hours Monday to Sunday. The application has been properly made and all procedures correctly followed. The application is attached as Appendix A in your pack. Photographs of the blue site notices in place and a copy of the newspaper advert are attached as Appendix B. The premises is a 350-acre country park with cafes and an activity centre, used for public enjoyment, commercial and private functions, and large-scale events and festivals. The operating schedule is completed by the applicant and contains additional measures to illustrate how they propose to promote the four licensing objectives, as required by provision of the Licensing Act 2003. The applicant proposes the following measures, which will be attached as conditions to any licence as may be granted. Generally, the personal licence holder or designated premises supervisor shall be on the premises at all times with sufficient members of staff on the premises to cover longer hours and busy times when entertainment is provided. There'll be regular training for staff, and for all events with over 999 people in attendance, an event safety management plan, traffic management plan, noise management plan, and security plan should be submitted to the Wokingham Safety Advisory Group at least 3 months in advance of the event. Specific to the objective of the prevention of crime and disorder, plastic cups and bottles will be used externally. Photographic ID will be requested to control underage drinking, and there'll be car park patrols. Specific to public safety, there'll be portable appliance testing, up-to-date health and safety policy and risk assessments. Employers and public liability insurance will be in place and obtained for on-site suppliers. Sufficient lighting internally and externally will be used. There will be regular fire checks and servicing of fire detection and extinguishing equipment. There'll be emergency procedures in place. There'll be designated smoking and non-smoking areas, and there will be good housekeeping procedures in place. Specific to the prevention of public nuisance, there'll be a restriction on hours of outside entertainment. Speakers will be faced away from residential areas and external walls. There'll be signage in place asking people to leave the premises quietly. There'll be regular sound checks inside and outside of the premises. And it will be ensured that entertainers are aware of any noise restrictions placed on them prior to commencement. And finally, in relation to the protection of children from harm, regular safeguarding training will be given to team members. There'll be DBS checks for any employees or on-site suppliers who will be in contact with children, and there'll be up-to-date risk assessments surrounding use of play or activity equipment and water sports. The responsible authorities who are consulted on this application are Thames Valley Police, Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service, Environmental Health, Trading Standards, Public Health, the Local Planning Authority, the Local Safeguarding of Children Board, and Home Office Immigration Enforcement. One representative was received from Public Health requesting details of the Premises Challenge 25 policy. However, following a response from the applicant, this representation was withdrawn, and this is attached as Appendix C in your pack. There's also been one representation against the application from another person with concerns over noise nuisance, antisocial behaviour, traffic congestion, and intrusion onto private property, attached as Appendix D. Those that have made a representation have been informed of the time and date of the Licensing and Appeals Subcommittee hearing and have been informed of their right to attend. In terms of legal considerations, conditions may only be attached to a premises licence where they are deemed appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. They must be proportionate and not duplicate any existing provisions contained in other legislation. The justification behind a refusal or the attachment of conditions must be given to the applicant. The subcommittee is advised that any findings on any issues of fact should be on the balance of probabilities, and any decision should be based on the individual merits of the application. The subcommittee, in arriving at its decision, must have regard to the relevant provisions of national guidance and its own statement of licensing policy, and reasons should be given for any departure. There is a right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of the date of the applicant being notified of the decision of the Licensing Subcommittee. That concludes my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alec. Now, please, Gemma Wilford, would you present the application? Can you hear me?
Yes, apologies. I wasn't aware that I was required to present something.
Well, I don't know whether you are or not.
This is my first one, so apologies.
If I'm not... Well, do we then take it, Lucianne, that's the...
So I think everything that Alex said, that's obviously the application that I've submitted. So I think anything that I would say is within that application.
Fair enough. Then we now have the opportunity to ask questions, and particularly Mr. Kloppers. Would you like to ask questions, sir?
Yes, thank you so much, Chair. Nice to meet you all. As you know, my name is JP Kloppers. I live within the park, so our house is directly behind the barn, which is adjacent to the cafe. So we kind of the first line, if you like, of things that happen in the park.
Yes. Okay. The other way around. Okay, so I beg your pardon. So, Beth, you have a question. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to ask Gemma and partially, Alec, about the concern of residents in the park and nearby residents about noise nuisance and car parking. I assume Mr. Kloppers has got children, and even if he hasn't, late night music and movement can be very disturbing. What are you going to put in place to mitigate any problems that come that way?
So we have regulations in place with regards to levels of noise. So I'm sure everyone's aware of the Marvelous Festival that happens with us every year. That's the biggest event that we do, and the biggest event that I foresee that we will do. And they have parameters that they have to adhere to, and they also have on-site overnight security because they also have guests that do stay in the park overnight. So there's particularly a high level of security surrounding that event. And the noise restrictions are monitored in line with what policies Environmental Health put in place. With regards to any additional events, we have with the Marvelous contract, we're not allowed to take a similar event within 6 weeks of that particular date. So that does limit us with regards to taking additional events. Which I did sort of submit back in my proposal, that as much as we're applying for a premises license, we're doing this solely because at the moment for each event that we hold on the park, we have to apply for a TENS license, or the guests that are booking us have to apply for a TENS license. And by submitting an application for a premises license, it removes that administration element for those bookers. So I'm not foreseeing that we're going to be growing the events business substantially because we've got to honour the contract that we have with Marvelous. It was purely submitted so that we alleviated that need for a TENS for each event that we do on the park.
Right.
Chairman, may I follow up on that a little, please?
Of course.
I would also
Is
like
that
to
6
after
weeks? Is that 6 weeks, 6 weeks either side, or is Marvelous in the middle of the 6 weeks?
6 weeks either side. So 6 weeks prior and 6 week post, we're not allowed to do any event similar because it will dilute the business that they get. So that's a contractual agreement that we have in place with them.
What's the date of Marvelous?
This year it's the 19th and 20th of July. So it's right in the middle of the summer. So it obviously does remove a big part of the summer period.
And how close is that to the residential properties?
We've got residential properties that surround the whole parkland. Mr. Kloppers is sort of, you're more central on the parkland, but where Marvelous is set up, it's on Lee Heath, which is it's sort of right in the middle of the park. And then there's a row of houses on Davis Street that are quite heavily impacted from a noise perspective, but they're aware of the event every year, and I believe that Marvelous organisers do put out notifications. They know when it's happening, they invite them on site and they have tickets, etc. So they attend the event because they know that it's happening, and we do appreciate that this one is quite a large one, which is why we don't repeat this sort of event. It's a one-off, the big Marvelous event, and it's across a 3-day period.
And I just respond to some of those with some, I think, having lived here.
Hang on, Mr. Kloppers, just hold on a second. Are you finished there, Beth? Is that fine for you?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you for the moment.
Okay. What about you, Bassett? Have you got any questions?
Yeah, I've got one question as well. So this is going to be throughout the year and out of hours, and how we are going to ensure the safety of the local residents out of hours. Of local residents. Yeah.
So we obviously have a responsibility if we're allowing the events to take place in our park, but we do put stringent procedures in place with regards to the event management plan, and the people that are booking the site to use for their event, it is their responsibility to ensure that they have got security measures in place, that they have communicated clearly to their attendees what will happen at the end of the event, and sensitivity surrounding our local neighbours that we work with. But it's very much, it's our responsibility to ensure that those event management plans are in place and are stringent and are agreed with the park management, but it is the responsibility of the event organisers to ensure that that happens.
Thank you. Alex, I see you have your hand up. What would you like to say?
Thank you, Chair. Couple of things from me. Firstly, I think, Gemma, it might help the panel if you could just give us an idea of what sort of events you're expecting this license might be enabling, sort of, yeah, the nature of those events, how big they are and how often, perhaps.
Yeah, so I'm sure you're all aware we've recently had our wedding licence approved. So we are currently marketing the park as a wedding venue. The average inquiry size for weddings is about 80 guests, so they're not large events. They have a marquee or a stretch tent on site, and the proviso of them having a structure on site is that they have to have overnight security. So that will be monitored overnight from that perspective, but the event still has to finish at 11 o'clock and everything stops at 11 o'clock, and we don't have guests that then stay on site. So guests are then transported out to local hotels, or they make their own arrangements and they go home. The overnight security would still remain on site because that structure will obviously then be on site for another night. So if there are any guests that are wandering around that shouldn't be wandering around, there is a security team on site to monitor that and deal with that. The other event inquiries that we're currently dealing with are, so for example, next weekend we've got a family barbecue, which is for 50 guests. We've then got a church celebration on Sunday, which is for 150 guests. So they're not big events that we're dealing with. We've put the premises license in with the opportunity of going until 11 o'clock for those inquiries that we get, but the only inquiries we're getting at the moment that want to go to 11 o'clock are the wedding inquiries, and that is a very new segment of the business for us. The premises license that we've applied for gives us that flexibility to be able to be doing these church events, community events. We've got a medieval jousting weekend coming up in September. That's a full day event for about 1,000 people per day. We've put parameters in place for separate car parking for that event. We've got parking marshals. So that's all set up on a separate event management plan. So as much as I've submitted this for an 11 o'clock finish, I do believe those events are few and far between.
Thank you very much, Gemma. I've got a question. Have you ever had any complaints before?
With regards to event noise or event?
Yes,
Yes, we have, yes.
Yeah.
So I think one of our biggest challenges with the park, even when we don't have an event on, is car parking, because we do have complaints on a relatively regular basis from the local residents because people choose not to use the car parks and they park on the local streets, and that is something that is an ongoing battle that we're trying to sort of work with highways, yes, with the park and also with the residents. So that is why we have stipulated for any events over 100, their car parking is included within their proposal, and we then section off areas of the parkland that are separate as their own private car park, so that there isn't then the opportunity for their guests to abandon paying the parking fees here and just leave their car on the resident streets.
Yeah, quite. Okay, well, I think then we've asked everybody. Jennifer, do you need anything to ask anything?
No, not from me at the moment.
Okay, Mr. Cloppers now.
Excuse me, Chair. Can I ask another question?
Oh, right. Sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead.
Thank you. So Gemma, Marvellous have got their own licence at the moment, and there's a good number of conditions on there about noise management and things. Are they planning to keep that and use those conditions?
Yeah.
Okay. So
anything sort of 1,000 and above, we would still expect that they require their own licence, because there's a lot more detail behind that than we would want to submit.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think we're ready for you, Mr. Kloppers.
Okay.
You may go ahead.
Sure. Okay. Lots to cover. I think just firstly, just to respond to a few points that Gemma made, I think it's important for us or for the panel when considering this license, that we kind of need to ignore intent. Like this license grants a blanket license. The contract with Marvelous could change in a month. It could, you know, like those are outside of the control of this body. If that contract changes, then suddenly that 6-week window changes as well, in which case then there's the permission to have large events every weekend. So I think we've got to bear that in mind, that this can't be, this decision can't be taken with the current parameters outside of our control in consideration. So that would be kind of my first point on that. And with the current Marvelous contract or the event, it's great. I think people here do enjoy it, but it is for the residents, it's a burden. You know, like we put up with it every year, and we know it's 3 days. And I think there is that intention from the residents certainly to want to partner with Dinton and to work well together, and that has worked to date. But that event is onerous. You know, parking is one thing. I think the noise is huge. It doesn't stop at 11 as much as the rule says it should. It doesn't. It goes until the early hours, and then you've got sort of the trucks coming in and out into the early hours of the morning as well, when they start disassembling. And then there's the mess, you know, that is left over. So I think if it's strained at the moment, it's going to get even worse if there are more events. I think we've got to just be cognizant of that. The free tickets, we've been here for nearly 4 years. We've never gotten any free tickets or any approach from anybody about attending the event. That's never happened. In the residents the neighbors that I did speak to, they said that happened in the first year. But then not again. So I think that's fallen by the wayside. Yeah, so that's just a little bit on the points that you made there. I think overall though there was and I don't know, Alec, if this is covered in what you said. I think the letter of the law was followed in notifying neighbors about this. But certainly when I spoke to neighbors I think I spoke to 20 specifically. One person knew about it. One person had heard about it but didn't understand the implications, and 18 had no idea. So it's 90% of the residents that I spoke to had no idea that this was happening. So while there was a notice put up and something in the newspaper, I don't think it was sufficient for something that's going to have this big an effect on the neighborhood. So again, just something to consider. So to reiterate again, we're not opposed to events at the park. It's a vital asset, but I think we've got to realize the application as it stands is unlimited, and it lacks the specific enforceable conditions necessary to protect residents from public nuisance, ensure public safety, and to protect our children. So as I've kind of gone through it, and I've chatted to a lot of neighbors about this and kind of collated just their thoughts, I think what would be reasonable, or what I would put back to the panel, is 5 asks to put onto as conditions on the license. One is to just restrict the frequency and scale of events. Because currently it's every day from 6 in the morning till 11 p.m. I think it was, is what could be possible. And I think we'll agree, if there are events every day with amplified music going on, it's just untenable for residents. You know, we can't put our kids to sleep until 11 p.m. at night, if particularly on the amplified. If they're small events where we can't hear them, no problem, go ahead, that's wonderful. But where we can hear it and it's late and there are potentially drunk people wandering around, we just got to be really mindful that presents a real risk to us as residents. So the first one, what I'd propose is that we limit it to 4 major events per year of the scale of a Marvelous, nothing more than that. 8 medium events, so between 500 and 1,000 people. And then a further condition that not more than 1 amplified music event per week. So that would be kind of what I'd propose, just in terms of limiting the frequency. I think that's something the residents could tolerate. And I think also then it says, hey, we want to partner with the park, but this can't be a free-for-all. So that would be my ask number one in terms of a condition, that we limit the frequency. Ask number two is that I think 11 p.m. is too late, particularly for amplified music where there are kids around. So I think what I'd propose is that on weekdays, so Sunday to Thursday, amplified, if there's an event, amplified music and alcohol sales cease at 9 p.m. and on weekends they cease at 10 p.m. So that would be kind of my ask number two, just around the curfews and noise control. Ask number three, and this is particularly for our house, we, from the garden or parking lot for the cafe, guests or people visiting the park can see straight into our garden. And so that does put our kids specifically in a vulnerable state. And if you consider like weddings where we have no idea where people are coming from, we don't know what the backgrounds are, there's no check that's done on guests, where they have access to alcohol and they could literally see kids in our garden and just wander around and walk straight in. To me, that's a major problem. So what I'd ask is that we put up, that Dinton puts up a solid fence between us and the High Chimneys house and the cafe and parking lot, which just then means people can't see in. I think that would go some way to mitigating the noise a little bit, but I think more importantly, protecting our children from the kind of gaze of unknown people that are wandering around during these events. Yeah, that's a big one. Ask number four was just around the parking management. Like as Gemma said, this is a problem today, and with an expanded license, it'll just become a bigger problem. So I don't think the current measures that are in place are adequate for addressing this. I get it's a difficult thing to address, but I don't think just making the problem bigger is going to be helpful to anyone. So there really needs to be a concrete plan here around how is the traffic situation going to be addressed, and what are the consequences if it's not? Because at the moment there really, there aren't any. If I'm honest, people can park where they like, and we just get stuck, and you've got to wait. And so I think having some kind of a consequence in there that the license gets taken away. I don't know what that consequence is. I think that's up to the panel to decide. But what I'd suggest is that in any 12-month period, it's kind of a two-strike policy. On first failure, there's got to be a notification sent, some kind of a review, an action plan to rectify what happened. And if it happens again, then that license gets revoked. It's just not, for the residents that are living here. I think it's reasonable to put that in place. And then the last one is around just environmental protection and antisocial behavior. I think the condition we must have, and I think, Gemma, you've said you have this, the kind of pre-approval plan around waste management and tackling antisocial behavior. Again, like that is in place even for something the size of Marvelous, and by and large it goes well. But certainly I've heard from many neighbors where they have just loads of rubbish in their gardens, people urinating, defecating in their hedges, that sort of thing. There's just got to be a more robust plan. Again, I don't know what the answer is to that, but I think some kind of a enforceable plan with staff that are there to make sure that these things happen needs to be put in place to protect the residents. I think that was it by way of the five. Any questions in terms of those 5 areas before I kind of wrap up?
Thank you for that, Mr. Kloppers. Does anybody else wish to comment or ask any more questions? Beth?
Yeah, I think the question of fencing on a safeguarding issue with children is a very reasonable question to ask. And I think we should look at security for the residents by way of some sort of barrier, or something that protects children from the view of strangers. I don't know if that's possible, Gemma. You've got your hand up, so let's see what we can do.
Gemma?
I believe from speaking to Simon, who's our countryside operations officer, that a barrier was discussed at one point, but then I think the residents that are with you in your area, Mr. Kloppers, one of them left and it all then didn't happen. So I think that is something that has been sort of looked at in the past. So I don't think that's an unreasonable request, and I'm sure that's something that absolutely is achievable. The car parking debate is a difficult one, because it's very difficult to understand if that car that is parked in the wrong spot, is it just someone that is walking around the lake to feed the ducks, or is it someone that should be attending an event and therefore should have parked within the event parking area? And as I said earlier, this is a bit of an ongoing discussion, and we've approached the local residents about having double yellow so that we can then put enforcements in place, but that then restricts them if they've got guests coming and they don't want double yellows outside their house. So it is an ongoing discussion around the car parking, but I think with us putting measures in place that if you have an event, you have to have a reserved parking area and your guests have to park in that alleviates that. But if we've got a busy park because it's a great weather weekend and just all of the public are attending, there's no way of us controlling that. We try our best, but you can't control what the public do, unfortunately. If they decide to park on the road instead of coming into our parks, it's a very difficult one to manage.
Yes, I think the point on the events, though, is if there's parking that's been demarcated for the event, I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But it does then mean there's less parking for everybody else. And so that kind of amplifies the problem outside.
Yeah, we have. So with the events, we have within Lee Heath, where the events field is, we have overflow car parking there. So we section off areas of the grassland that is used for the car parking, as opposed to utilising the normal car parks. So gotcha. it's additional parking for events.
Thank you. Alec, you'd like to say something?
Yeah, Chair. Couple of points. I think firstly it's important just to reiterate as well, any conditions that may be applied to the licence need to relate to the 4 licensing objectives. Obviously that's something that the committee and the legal advisor can discuss when making their decision. In terms of parking, I think you can argue the toss about whether that's public nuisance or not. But I would say in event safety management plan and the safety advisory groups, this is something that's usually discussed. So I would hope that a safety advisory group where an event safety management plan is discussed would go some way to alleviate some of those. And in terms of a review of the licence, if it's found that a licence holder is failing to meet the licence objectives, anyone can apply for review, although says that a reasonable standard of evidence is needed for that to be a productive session. So just some points to consider there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Kloppers, have you got any final questions?
No, I think just in summary to say certainly from my side and the people I've spoken to, not asking for a ban on events. We love the park. We love that it's kind of used actively. Got a very good relationship with Simon and others that work here. I think we're just asking for balance, particularly around the frequency and scale of events. So just putting that in place for a future generation where maybe there's a different Simon and a different Gemma that make different decisions down the line. That the residents are protected, So I think that frequency is an important one in the time. Like the park is a beautiful place. We love sitting in our garden and just enjoying the sounds of the birds and the kind of tranquility of it. And I think everybody else does too. So to have that muddied by amplified music, it would just totally change the environment, So that's kind of the overriding thing. But yeah, I think that's.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So the next procedure is that everyone else will leave, Alec, Gemma, and yourself, and we will make a decision. And go on. Yeah. Right. Beg pardon. It's the heat. So, Alex, do you want to sum up? first? Is it-
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't think there's a lot to sum up, to be honest. An application's been made for a premises licence. It sounds like there's potential for a variety of events that might be used for. There's some conditions been proposed, notably one around submitting an event safety management plan to the Safety Advisory Group, which we expect for all our major events in the borough, to be honest. And there's been one objection received from a member of the public. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Gemma, any final bits?
Just to kind of summarise that, I've heard what's been said, and I am totally sensitive to the park and the residents,
Sure.
and I completely agree. It's a beautiful place. We don't want to be destroying it and turning it into Glastonbury. That's not the route that I want to go down with it. It's making it wet for everyone, isn't it? And I think, as I said at the beginning, it's to alleviate us having to apply for attendance for each and every event that we're doing. We're not going to be turning this into a busy park that there is something happening every week. It doesn't have that demand, but it's just making sure that we've covered the basis for every event that we are doing, and what the inquiries that are coming through, and that we can handle them.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I think that's it. So everyone else will leave. We will. Okay. Do you want to sum up, Mr. Kloppers, or do you feel?
No. Just thank you for putting this together and creating this space. Nice to meet you all. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, for the final time, you will all leave. We will make our decision, and you will know within 5 working days. All right. Thank you very much for attending, everyone. It's been a bit hot.
Thank you.